Okay, so Abdo just asked a question. For those of us using external API sources, how can we replicate a similar autosaver feature that could work with editable input text?
That's a good question. I think the basis of this question is like, because you can set an action when you change an input, so you can have it saved to an API. So that's kind of like assuming like that basically. It's straightforward. The question is more like, how can you have one action that can work on any input, like the autosave? Because autosave is cool because you just add it to any input and it works. And I don't know actually if there's a very easy way to do that. The autosave action itself, you can go and you can look in the JavaScript of it and you can get it there. You can make it happen to any API you want, but I've never actually looked at it, so I don't really know what's in there. But somehow it's going to find the exact input you're on. It's going to do something. So in our case, it calls to Bildr's API. You could change that to do anything else basically. So you call it your own API. And I think it would work. Everything in a Bildr project that happens is contained in the project itself. So if autosave is working, then it's like 99.9% chance you can edit it to make it do something else. But I've never done it myself. So I don't know, maybe there'd be some gotchas in there.
Would it be worth it to go and go into the autosave and take a look at what is in that action?
Yeah, I mean, might as well, at least until if someone else has a question and we need to switch off, we can, but I can just go look at it right now and see what's in it.
I think today is going to be kind of like an exploratory free-form kind of thing. And then we can always refer back to the SaaS starter for anything that's like specific.
So if I just have a blank project, like I just started it before this, and autosave comes by default, so it'll already be in my project. The way it works is like as you bring actions in, these lists, I clicked on the custom actions over here it's a list of every action in the project. This populates as you bring stuff in, but on a new project, it comes with autosave. So there's this autosave action type. And that's like what you drop into a flow. That's the actual action. And then the thing that makes that autosave action type run is an action type function in this other tab, and it's called autosave. So if I look at this and I look at the JavaScript, and just to know, we got a question. I just answered a question in Discord about this kind of stuff here, where this JavaScript is all white text on black and there's no syntax highlighting. And just as a general note, like at some point we will have syntax highlighting in here. We have like the capabilities added in, like it's all built in and we could turn it on when we get to it, but we just haven't done it yet. But yeah, so if I'm looking in here, right here is where it gets so the element so if you're on an input and you want to make the autosave work for whichever input you're on, it looks like this first line here is what does that. That's going to find the current element you're on. And then it's going to do a couple things. And there's some of the things in here are these BOPI helpers. This B API stands for Bildr API. And that's like ways that you can interact with Bildr's core in JavaScript. So you'll probably need to do that for this autosave action. Like you'd probably keep this one. And then here it's doing some Bildr stuff, like it's setting a filter set ID and a field ID, and it's getting ready to make that call to Bildr. You'd probably just replace whatever's in here with your own API call. And I mean, yeah, you'd have to go through and just like look at some of the other stuff it's doing, but then it returns a response, which is, sort of normal for actions. But actually it looks pretty straightforward. It's easier than I even thought it might be. So it's probably pretty doable. It's if you know a little bit of JavaScript.
Gotcha. So maybe in this case, would they basically could you just copy all of this and create a new function, and then you would just edit that function to be for the external API source?
Yeah, I would do something like this. So I'd come into this autosave function. If you hit the 3 dots, you can duplicate it. So I duplicate that first, and this would be like autosave to my API. And then I would actually go. So if I just drop an API action onto one of these flows on this page, that's going to pull in, like I said, all the behind the scenes API stuff. So I don't even need to use this. I can delete it now. But now if I come in here and I check my functions, I have API call with parameters. So I duplicate autosave, I have it now. I'd go into API call with parameters. And this is all the JavaScript that makes like a legit Bildr API call where it actually sends it to Bildr server first, then Bildr server sends it out, which allows us to use secret values and hide API keys. And it's not too much. It's like 68 lines. So you could just copy this, merge it into that autosave element, and you'd have to replace the values with whatever API. So you have to know your API and what's going to happen with your API endpoints. So I don't want to make it sound like it's just that easy, but I mean, it's actually pretty straightforward, more than I expected.
Okay. So I actually think this is really awesome here because I think sometimes people forget what you can do or how deep you can actually do your own custom things. So I just want to recap. So by default, there are a couple of actions and their related functions that are automatically in your actions list here. This is like your toolkit. These are all the things that are currently in your project, right? You've got two lists, elements and actions.
Elements here. And I didn't put anything on the page, so I have no elements in my list yet.
Right. So we try to keep this list clean and tidy so that it only shows things that are actively used in your project. So when you're actually dragging and dropping an element from that list, from the 4 little options that you have at the top, that is when you actually use an element, that is when then it will actually be brought into your project. And then it'll show up in your elements list. And then similar thing with an action. You saw how like Drew went in and he added that API action. Then it went in and added that action or anything that was part of that action and any related functions in there. And so now his list is growing, right? Any of the things that you see in there, either in the elements list or the actions list or functions, you can fully duplicate and make your own. So if there is something that you like or an element or an action or something, and you just want to make some small edits to it, duplicate it and then edit it and make it your own. Like you can fully extend that. This also
you can also just edit it too, just to note. You don't have, like I would duplicate it to keep the original, and be, it's like a little safer. But really, you don't even have to duplicate it. You can edit any of the core functionality of Bildr that way.
Okay, super. Hey, Facundo, welcome. Yes, that's true, Drew. I forgot about that you can just edit it as well. And then always, like if you want to, you can always start a new project. If you somehow mess things up, you can always compare and I think reset it if you need to manually. So there's a lot of,
we can actually touch on that quick too, is like if you did change something in that JavaScript and break it, if you start a new project, you can just copy that JavaScript, paste it back into yours, and you restore it now to the original. So it's really flexible.
Yeah. And actually, can we go back into an action type real quick, Drew? Just so that I want to make sure that I kind of understand it. So if we open up one of these, and so basically all the setup that you see here and like the arguments, that's essentially rendering in like a no code view of what the JSON is that right?
Yeah, so that's the 2 steps. There's the action type and then the action type function. The action type defines this, which is what I see in here. So if I'm on an API call action, I see there's a drop down for method, there's a type input for URL, different things here. Whereas if I were on a set value, it would be different. It's where I choose an element. So what's in this panel basically is defined in that action type. So an API call, there's method, there's URL parameters, headers. So that's all defined in here. And then also is defined the functions, which is that other component of an action. You define which functions make this up. So for API call, it actually runs 4 functions. It does the HTTP call. And there's some settings in there. And does a condition based on what's responded, then it sets a variable, and then it runs a flow.
Okay, awesome.
Show them some of the metrics that you guys look at, see.
I think someone might need to mute real quick. John, thank
Yeah,
you.
to understand a little bit more how it looks, like actually we do
Okay. Okay, I forgot I can do that. All right, so, okay. So another thing that I want to point out here is if you are trying to figure something out and you can't, you can always ask someone who is a little bit more technical if they can help you create a custom function or a custom action type. Which this, like if we're thinking long-term, like think marketplace, like you need something or you need like an element type that does something and it's not available, you don't ever have to like wait on us. You can just ask someone and they can make it, or you can purchase it from someone, or you can, if you know, learn how to start doing these things and build cool stuff and sell it to other people or gift it. You know, it doesn't have to be about that, but they're like, if we're thinking long term, like we've had dreams about a really awesome marketplace that makes it so much easier for you know, Bildr's like it's a technical tool. It's got a really hard learning curve, but I think over time with things like that, as people become more proficient, they're going to make it easier for other people who aren't as technical to be able to use these things. So I love thinking about what that will eventually evolve into. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about the flexibility of action types. So I know that was probably a lot for your question, Abdo, but that might be one way that you could kind of do something a little custom for that. Does anyone have questions on this particular setup? I know Chris just asked a question before we move to that. We can always ask anything about this. No? Okay. All right. So Chris DM'd me a question and it looks like he's got a few. And so Chris, if it's cool with you, I'll just ask you to like put it in the general chat instead of direct message. That way, like everybody can see it and benefit from it. But the first one is, yeah, and Dominic, you can just chat your questions and we'll go through them if we understand them. And then you could just come watch the Q&A later if that will help you. Okay, so Chris's question is, how can we create the drag and drop functionality similar to cycles? I'm trying to think which drag and drop functionality you're seeing in cycles. So Cycles is the task management app that Mark built that we use to like manage all of our tasks and stuff that we have to do. What is there something in there that's drag and drop?
I can't actually picture what's drag and drop in Cycles right now, but you know, drag and drop's drag and drop, so we can talk about it.
Okay, let's just talk drag and drop then.
It's probably something we just forget because we see it so much.
Yeah, and I'm actually, while you're going through that, I think we do have a tutorial on that too. So I'm going to try and hunt that down. And
Yeah, that'd be good.
So chat it.
Yeah, because I'm basically like, I was gonna talk generally about it, but it can get pretty deep with drag and drop.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the way Bildr does it is the way you do it in code, which means you have like a drag event and a drop event. You have these different events and you can put them together and do like literally anything. So it's kind of like sky's the limit thing, but I'll just set something quick up and show the basics.
That sounds great. All right, let me see if I can find. Yes. There's one drag and drop images into a mood board.
Nice. Yeah, grid. I probably should do something with a grid row. The thing is, when you get into grid rows, it gets more and more complicated to like do it right. But I can actually, I'll start with this and then I'll move into grid rows. So I just did a couple divs, but really just this first one that's just a little square. And if I'm on this div properties, there's these droppable and draggable properties. That's like the first step to making something drag and droppable. So if I check draggable on, because I want to move this black square around, now I can, because the draggable's on, and then there's a few things here that are settings. So I probably don't need to change any of these now, but basically you can change the image while you're dragging it. You can offset the image while you're dragging it, or whatever element it is, like different things, which you can imagine, like depending on your application, you might want to like show it semi-transparent while it's dragging, or show a different image altogether while it's dragging. So you can get complex there. But really, it's just that draggable. And actually, I think just that will make it draggable. There's a couple more steps, but I'll test now because I think just that will actually let me pull it around. Yeah. So now I'm dragging it around, but it's not going to do anything. Like when I let it go, it just goes back. So that's where action or events come into play, which will trigger flows and actions. So if you're under the events tab, like if I'm on this, drag this, by default, we see click, mouse enter, and mouse leave, but we have this new event, which is any JavaScript event that exists. So here, if I type like drag, you can see it gives me some drag events. So there's drag, drag end, drag enter, drag leave, drag over, drag start, drop. So all of these are events, and they mean different things. And you look them up, they're not from Bildr, these are JavaScript events. So drag, and we put little descriptions, but you can obviously get more information if you Google them. Drag, like when an element is dragged, and drag start at the start of a drag operation. Like they're similar, but you might use those in different ways. So again, you piece these together how you need. But so in this case, it's already draggable, and like I'm doing a quick example, so I don't know if I'll put anything on the drag start. But you could, for example, when they start dragging, maybe you lock everything else on the page, or maybe you highlight some places where you can drop it. Like you might want to do things when they start dragging. What I actually want, if I go, let me put some properties on this so we can see it. I'm just going to create like a drop zone, basically. And this will be when I drop this square into here, it'll do something, right? And so this one, this div now, I'll label it. In the properties, we're going to set it to droppable. Well, I don't even know if we actually have to set this to droppable. It's kind of funny. I don't know that. Really, if I were doing this on my own, I'd play with that, because I think I have to set maybe this one to droppable, because that's the one I'm going to be dropping, but it might be the other way around. But what I do need to do is on this blue one, on the events, I can add an event for like drag over or drop or one of these. I think in this case, what do I need? I probably need to like on drag over, set something, and then run the event on drop of this. And see, that's where it's like getting more complicated, because you kind of just have to think of what you want. But basically, I would say when I'm dragging this square, if I drag over this one, it'll maybe set a variable or something. And then if I drop it, it'll do something based on that variable. So it's like, it's a couple steps, but basically I would say for this one, maybe like drag over, we'll set a new flow to say like, let it know you're over blue. I don't know. Or actually, you know what we can do? We can do like I can output something. So I'll do like this. And then we'll say, when we drag over the blue, we'll set that text to over blue. So there might be another step here. I actually don't know, but we'll try this. This might just work as is. Yep. So, and see, like when I drag off, it's not going to go back or anything, because all I did was set that drag on. So like I could do, it would be pretty easy to do the drag off then. I would just need a drag leave and a new flow. It sets the value back. So now I'm over, I'm back, I'm over and I'm back. And so I think, let me try to put the drop on this drop zone. I think that what I have to do is put the drop on this square, but we'll try this first, just in case, because this will be easier. So I'll just change that status text again to dropped. So that's just saying when I drop it, change this word to dropped. But it's only when I drop it over the blue because it's on the blue. So let's see. Okay, yeah. So the drop does actually go on the element that you're dropping on, which is even easier. So right now, if I'm over the blue or I'm not, it's telling me. If I drop it on the blue, it'll say dropped because there's a drop event on this blue bar. But if I drop it not on the blue, it won't say drop. Nothing will happen. So right now, that was like the most simple possible way I could set it up. All I'm doing is setting a value. But you can imagine you might want to do other stuff. Like if you're in a grid list of rows and you drag and drop, when you drop, you might want to set the order and save it into the database so that you've now reordered the rows. And the reason I didn't want to start with that example is because drag and drop reordering, it actually gets really complicated. It's like a UI thing. It's like you can make a really simple version of it, but then it's not really a great UI the way you drag and drop. And if you want to make a really nice drag and drop rows UI, it gets pretty complicated. And the way I've done it where I'm happy with the output is like each row has like a hidden little sliver on top and a hidden little sliver on bottom that are drop zones. And when you roll over them, they expand to get bigger. And there's so many steps to make it really good that it can get complex. But basically what I'm doing is whatever drop zone you make, when you change a row and you drop it, you just look at that grid and you calculate the orders again, and then you save each of the new orders to the database. And the next time someone goes back, it'll be reordered. That's kind of the theory. And I could try to show it, if it makes sense. I just feel like that would take maybe even more than the rest of the time to really do it right.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. That's like a perfect intro. And I did chat the tutorial. You actually did this one, Drew.
Yeah, it should be. I was gonna say I thought it was in the tutorial somewhere. So that's probably
yeah, about dragging and dropping. I think it was like images or something like that. So that I think should be helpful. Images in a mood board.
Yeah, they're in a grid, but yeah, it was just like a grid of images and you could reorder them.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And awesome, Chris. I'm glad that helped. So let's see. So we've got a couple more questions. We've got one from Facundo, and then we can hop over to talk about Dominic's question. So Facundo would like to ask about JS modules. Facundo, do you want to unmute or chat a little bit more and let us know what you're wondering about?
Thanks. Hey guys. Drew, it's amazing to watch you use the thing so fast. I'm like, I swear I'm watching it on like 5 times speed. It's crazy. Very encouraging. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of experimenting this past week, diving deep, and I hired like a JavaScript tutor that's how the start of my week started, and I'm progressing as fast as I can. And so a lot of these libraries are sometimes they're simple, and I get it, like do a little CDN script. And then sometimes they're not so simple, and it's like a module. So I've learned to like, okay, use a script and use it as a module script. It's but so like anytime I want to like import a feature from a module, I have to do that in the header script, not in the function that I've created like from in Bildr. And I'm wondering if that is the only way to do it? Am I thinking the right way? Is there, I don't know enough to know that I'm doing something completely wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, generally you're in the correct thinking, but you can actually put the script call or whatever you need to do to get any JavaScript. You can put that inside of an action too. There's a Bildr API helper function that will actually, if the script's already loaded, it will not go and get it. But if it's not loaded, it'll go get it. So it's like, if you have the same action repeated like 20 times on the page, it's not going to get that script 20 times. So it's pretty smart. It's a built-in thing, but at the same time, you could use a page header too. So sometimes I'll just use a page header to be like lazy, basically. It's like a little faster sometimes. But either way works. But yeah, I think the more correct way, like for example, on the WYSIWYG text editor that we have, the element is tiny MCE. So like that's the JavaScript library behind it. So when you drop that element on, it's like loading TinyMCE, like a couple different, it's like loading some style sheets and some JavaScript without adding a page header. That's all done like in the JavaScript function. And the reason is because we don't want to make people add it. Like if other people want to use it, we don't want to make them add a page header. So yeah, it's definitely doable. And I think I can probably even call that up, the exact JavaScript, because really it's just one line. But what I would do, the way I would find it, because I don't know the JavaScript line off the top of my head, is I would actually drop on a WYSIWYG text editor, which now puts it in my elements list. And if I go to this is like how you check what the function is on an element. So this is the rich text editor, and it has a render function right here, display.js function, render TinyMCE. So then I go into the functions and I look for render TinyMCE. This project has nothing in it. Usually it's like filled, once you have a project, it's harder to find, but it's right here. So if I look at the JavaScript, I happen to know it's at the bottom. This one's a little more JavaScript. So right here, I'm not even using it, it's commented out, but right here is this line, bappy.helper add header script. And what that does is you can choose any URL for the script like that. And then you can set it to run any function like when it's loaded. So it'll also like, it won't run anything in your JavaScript until it knows that script's loaded. So that's how you would do it. But it's as far as like finding, so when you find a new JavaScript library that you want to import or a module or anything, sometimes it's hard to find these script URLs. You still just have to do that basically. Like
Right.
I don't, you can, there is a way. So it's more complicated and I almost never do this. I don't even know if I've ever done it in a real project, but you can create actions in Bildr that are server side. So by default, everything's client side. If you do a server side action, you can import NPM packages, which means you can actually use like the normal modern flow of like importing NPM.
Yeah.
But it's a little different because then you're running server side actions and every time the user wants to run it, has to go to the server and run. It's not exactly ideal. It's easier and overall just better right now to use if you can find the actual CDN of the script include or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very helpful. And I, to your point, like I was able to, like one of the issues I ran into, like I was able to like find the CDN through like a JavaScript CDN or fire. I don't know what it was, and then the package itself was like export. It had the like function export in it. So then if it has an export, it can only be in a module. So then I was like, darn, I got to this point and I was like, so like that's where I was like, oh, I don't know. So then I had to like export it in a module code, like the function I needed, and then use that function. But what happens is I had to use a key in the header. And this is like a secondary add-on question. If I wanted to use a variable in like in a header without having to display like my private key or like my API key, is that possible or is that?
Yeah, like for like a header of an API call, you mean?
Well, no, it's like, it was like a, no, in the header of like of a script, in the script header.
Script.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it would basically like it's in the, it's displayed, right? Like, yeah, I don't know if you'd be able to hide that because we do have a thing called secrets where you can hide it like it. But the reason they work is because we send information to our server and our server sends the API call out. For the headers, they're getting printed on the page, on the actual like page that the user is seeing, and that's when it knows to get the header. So I don't think there's any way to hide that really.
Okay.
Except for
you can't reference a secret in that instance, Drew.
I don't think so because the way that the secrets work, it has to be sent from a server. But the way the page headers are is their client side. They're like, they get served to the browser and the browser reads them and does stuff. So you could get a complicated setup, which I was like about to say a second ago, where you would maybe like in the header, make a call to our server, which would call and use that secret. And then that would return something back. Like you could get it done. But it would depend on, like, I don't know, maybe that'll be slow. I mean, it probably wouldn't be that much slower actually.
Okay. Well, when I get to there, I'll chime back in. This is
I hope it's not too vague. I always give these answers that are kind of like so vague, but it's like now that you have the next step, just come back next question and we'll keep going,
Okay.
John, was your NPM question related to Facundo's question? Because if it is, we can jump to that one and then we'll tackle Dominic's question.
Yeah, it is related. It's where I find the same kind of thing where if you want to use certain things, the CDN doesn't always like give you all the stuff you need.
Yeah.
And so using the NPM like imports everything. But I guess the kind of side question to that is importing the NPM, is that just like add the NPM and then call those functions through JavaScript? And then B, to the point about the secrets, if you want to add the secrets like for the Morales thing that I'm doing, it's not really secrets, it's just the Morales key and then Morales link to the server. But if I put those in secrets, how to then call them in the JavaScript code?
Yeah. Let's see. So there's a couple things in there before I get to the secrets. The first thing is to use NPM right now, it has to be all in these server-side actions. So what you do is when you create a new server-side action, it gives you an option to like import an NPM package. If you import it, like once it's there in your action, then you just write JavaScript as if you're writing JavaScript. So you can write any of the normal stuff you would. And that's kind of how you would use it. And then on the front end, like in the normal actions that are on the client side, you can't import NPM. I think it might be something we should look into. Like people ask about it a lot. And I think for me, like, so I've been doing JavaScript long enough that when I look at the documentation of something that's showing me like modules and exporting, I know in my head how to like write that in a way that works for Bildr, but it's because of my JavaScript knowledge. So I think I just kind of like miss the fact that we really actually, it would be really helpful to get NPM on the front end too, which I have no idea what it would take, but it's probably something we should look into. And for secrets in that, so like the way that a secret works, like at a very basic level is like we pass a value through our secrets are pretty much exclusively used in our API call right now. So if you pass a value on our API call to the browser, it looks like > secret dot and then a string ID. And it's encapsulated in the greater than less than signs. So our server just knows to interpret that and actually use the secret. So I bet that if you're doing specific things in a server-side action and you just use that syntax, it would work. I mean, maybe. I'm not actually sure. I've never tried it. But I don't think that there's a script like this to get a secret. And I think if it's something that there's a use for, it'd be really easy for them to say, get secret and you just give it an ID. So I feel like it'll be doable, but I feel like the first thing I would try is just to use that secret syntax. And you'd have to probably find the secret ID, which I don't even know if you can. Like if I had this secret.
Because from my understanding, you
Right.
can use secrets. Yeah, there is the idea. You can use them to basically mask any value. It doesn't have to be specifically an API key. If there's anything you want to keep hidden, you can use a secret to hide it.
Yep. And this right here, it's actually, yeah, there it goes without the red line. This is like how it's written. So this was the idea I just copied from the secret. And it's like, if Bildr's server code sees this, it should convert it to the secret anywhere, but maybe not. We'd have to try it.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question. It's kind of a non-answer. It's like almost like you just need to go try a bunch of stuff. I have very little experience with the server-side actions. So like I really don't know that much about them. I just know the theory behind them.
John's used
Yeah.
to that, I think.
Yeah, no, it's just I think I get what you're saying. I just have to figure out how to implement it. And yeah, server side for me would be, and for some of the things that I do, would be ideal to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff you needed, I think. Like I actually ended up redoing Stripe to be all client side, but most of the Stripe stuff, if you want to do anything advanced, you need the server side. And once you do it in Bildr, you're still just writing JavaScript. That's kind of the cool thing about Bildr. Is you don't actually, it doesn't matter to you as a builder if it's server side, it's just like a setting, and then you're just writing JavaScript. So it's just, another layer in all the Bildr complexity that you can take advantage of.
And when you write the front end, the JavaScript code to call the server side stuff, do you have to do the imports in there, or you just write plain vanilla JavaScript?
You could technically write anything, like just have it all be JavaScript, but it's set up the same way normal actions are. So like you can set up all of the like inputs and outputs and chain a couple together and make whatever you want. And then in the studio, you don't even care as a user, you don't even care that it's server side or client side. You're just dropping an action in like any other action, setting your inputs, and it works in the flow.
Okay, solid. Thank y'all for that. Okay, Mr. Dominic, you're up. So Dominic, looks like you're looking to get some help with the Bildr data collection, getting Bildr data collection data based on current Chrome browser URL.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, I think. Oh, but before I get into that, I want to thank you both because you're so amazing. I tweet you guys all the time and you always respond to my tweets.
Yeah, no.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome, Dominic. Thank you.
So yeah, I was just kind of playing around with making different kinds of Chrome extensions. And I started putting data in the kind of Bildr native database. And I wanted to get information based on the current URL. So what I was doing is I turned it into a Chrome extension, and let's just say Twitter. I was trying to match it with the record, let's say a website name named Twitter in my database, and display all the other fields that are with that particular match. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I just couldn't figure it out. Like I could bring back the Twitter, but I couldn't display all the other fields that were with that particular record.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think I can probably just use this example. There's like some extra stuff on the page that shouldn't matter.
Do you want to do that, Drew, or do you want to take a look at Dominic's project? What would be?
Oh,
preference?
Drew, you might be a contributor on the project already. I'm not sure.
It's up to you. If you want me to go in there, I can too.
It should be called Hello
That's-
Universe.
Hello, it starts with. I have 2 users too, so it might just be on my other user.
Hello Universe.
Yeah, I don't know if I probably have it on my Drew at Bildr. This account that I'm signed into is not Drew at Bildr, so it's kind of confusing. Would you rather me do it in your project and look through stuff?
I mean, yeah, I don't care. I just want to know how it's done. So my
Yeah,
project.
Drew, whichever way you want to do it, if it's easier just to do it here.
It's fine with me. I just needed to sign out and sign back in. I
Yeah.
don't want to waste anyone's time.
Drew's got his artist's Bildr personal project account, and then the Drew at Bildr.
Oh, maybe I don't have it actually. Right, it's hello, right? I must not be on this
Actually,
one.
Dominic, can you just pop in there and see who
Yeah, right
you have
now.
invited, and then if not Drew, we'll just give him whichever one you want to be in, whichever.
Oh, I didn't invite you. I invited Mark, so I'll invite you now. Is it Drew at Bildr?
Yeah, Drew at Bildr.com.
Okay. Invitation sent.
Cool. Just refresh.
Also,
Wish
ego.
popped in there. That would have been cool. There we go.
Oh yeah, call out the one area we don't have resonance set up. So Dominic, tell us a little bit. This is a Chrome extension that you're doing specifically where you're trying to grab data from Twitter, or just like
I like playing with Bildr. This is nothing too serious, but
cool.
I wanted to create a Chrome extension that displays CSR data about different companies. So let's say if you hit twitter.com, you just click the Chrome extension and it displays CSR metrics. But it's going to the Bildr database to retrieve those metrics.
Gotcha. Okay,
Cool.
Yeah.
So in this case, I'm just checking through like what you have, but you're getting the actual domain name.
Yeah.
And I think depending on what that comes back as, we might need to change that, but like that's fine for now. But basically, we need to get something, or like either the whole domain name or a part of the domain name, and that value has to be saved in the database on the row.
Yeah.
And then if it is, we can do like a lookup and say, give me the rest of the records for that. The reason I said we might have to change it is because if someone's on twitter.com versus www.twitter.com versus twitter.com/something, that might actually mess it up because we're going to need to look up the record in the database with the exact match.
Yeah.
So we'll see, because I don't actually know what domain name brings back exactly, but we might just need to change it a little.
You go to flows. I think domain name just brings back twitter.com, but on the
That'd be
page,
perfect if it did, you know.
I think I have a
It just
on the
runs.
page.
So let's see, domain. Yeah. I can check that what that variable is. I don't actually know if these run outside of the Chrome extension though, so I might have to install it as an extension. Yeah, I probably have to install it as an extension, but here's the extension message. So that actually won't like show me, but I don't know if I need to look at that right this second. We can step through the other stuff, and then I can actually install this as an extension and test it in a second.
Yeah.
So let's see. So it gets the domain, then it runs verify, which is here. And so we're comparing domain as contained in verified websites. Okay. And then verified website. So is the value you want to set just this field text? Do you want to set a couple values, or what do you? Is
No,
it
just and like I say, if I can set one, I can probably do it for as many as I want to do it for. If you go to the database, I think with there should be a record that's like Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's saying website, and then you get text. I think this all looks like it's set up correctly. Comma separated, set the value. So when you run this, it doesn't work. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't display. It displays the hello universe, but it doesn't display anything else. And I was just wondering, like, is it just not? I think I thought my flow was broken, so I have something that's like a set value.
I don't see even a set value in here that does something differently, but actually I feel like this should all work. Okay.
Did we see it from Dominic's side? Like, should we swap over and he could show us? Or would
If
he?
you want, or I can export this pretty quickly right now.
Oh, cool, let's do it.
Load it up.
For
Gotta
anyone
remember where
who,
everything is. Just change our interface all the time. Oh, I'm not on the pro plan. I can't actually export it. Wait, maybe hang on.
Wait, connect your
I got
wallet.
this. I got this. I have a studio pass. I can just connect.
Can you believe he's not on the pro plan, y'all?
That's just because it's my other account, you know?
Mhm. Well, you see, with a studio pass, you can access pro on any account that you have.
Yeah, that was actually very convenient just there. Oh,
Mhm.
cool. And I can actually use your settings in here. Perfect.
I kept it super basic. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do Twitter. Okay, definitely didn't work. Let's see what it got. Can I see this? We're just gonna try to look and see if that variable is set in here. And if it is, we'll know what it returned, and if not, we'll actually output what it returns. Domain, so okay, so in this case, the domain's twitter.com, which is a little different than what you had in the database. So like technically wouldn't have matched, but it should have said unverified. But because this right here says www, it wouldn't have matched. So that's
Oh.
why we might have to fix, might have to just do a little processing on that to like make sure it always matches. Let's try
Yeah.
to see what happens. So we page load. I wonder if this for some reason didn't run. I don't know if this would make sense, but what in here, you're doing a run flow on page, which you don't actually have to do in this case. Like that's used if you want to run flow on a different page, but you can actually nest things. So like you can usually just add action here. Instead, you can just do nest if it's an action on the same page. So you can nest get domain in. I don't know if that's going to matter, but like I'm going to try that because
I do want to call that out because I actually see users use that a lot where they will use run flow on a page. But it's really that action is intended so you can like, for example, if you're opening a lightbox into a container on a page, you can call something else that you have set up on another page. Otherwise, just you can nest any sort of flow.
Oh, so you're saying it's for running, it's for getting data from another page, not the current page.
yeah,
Is
it
that what
could be for running an action or running a flow on another page because it could be for more than actually getting data. It could be for anything you want to do where it's on a different page. So you can't, if you hit this nest menu, it's only showing you flows from the current page you're on. So run
Okay.
flow allows you to run it anywhere. And the other benefit of run flow is like if you have a grid list where it's like a bunch of the same page in a row, you can do run flow on page to run on all those pages at the same time. A couple things, but so I just switched it and it didn't matter. I think run flow on page probably still works on the same page. It didn't fix it, but so the next thing I did was I went from page load where it was in page load and I took it out of here and I put it on page binding. And it's a little bit nuanced here because page load, the only thing it does is run page binding. But page binding right here does this data page bindings. And that's where it's going to like look at all the elements in the page and bind any data and set a few things up to kind of like start the page off. I don't
Okay.
think this would matter necessarily, but I just put the get domain after all that. And I put a wait just to say, make sure all the pages set up, then run get domain. And then I'm going to try it. And it's like at this stage, because I didn't see anything wrong in the config, like I'm just trying a few things, assuming it's kind of like a weird little quirk that's making it not work. I'm seeing this message here too. It's kind of these things. I don't know if this is easy to see on the screen share. There's these messages in the console here that says message from iframe just came. And that means that's like the Chrome extension is running and sending information back and forth to Bildr. So that means that this is actually running. So I don't know why I didn't update, but I just had this idea. Did you create this extension recently or like maybe a month ago?
I guess within the last month, I don't even know.
Because there is a thing where we were getting, I don't know, it was a little while ago, like it was probably more than a month ago at this point, but there was a period where we had a bug where when you exported a Chrome extension, it didn't set this one little variable on the page. And then things like that, what we just saw would happen where I can see it's talking in the console, but it's not updating. And so if you created this project when that bug was happening, even though we've updated it now, your project, like I was saying before, everything's contained in the project, so your project could still have that bug. I'm not sure if that's what's going on, just wondering.
Yeah, so that is automatically resolved as soon as they export again. All they have to do is export it again, and that should fix it. I would check what's the URL. Is it going off of the dev URL or is it going off of test? Or a different deployment, because
oh, it's going off production.
okay,
Well, that's
so
one thing. So let me do this as a new one here. So in this, and what just happened there is basically you have a choice when you preview your Chrome extension of which deployment. And so when you're building in Bildr, you're always in the development deployment. So if I hit development here, it puts this URL in that's like my preview URL. It's the same as this one up here. And so as you're developing a Chrome extension, you want it to be the development environment, because then if you make a change, it'll reflect live in the extension itself. When you are done, or when it's like at a good point and you publish your to production, so just like a regular web app or a website, when you want to publish to production, you do that with a Chrome extension too, and then you export a final one where instead of the development deployment, you come from production deployment, and that's where you get like a real URL. The reason you do that is because then you can actually have two versions of your extension. You have a development version and a production version. You can go back, keep building on your extension, and it won't break for current users. So that's why you do that. But in this case, we need it to be on development, because what we were looking at there, I was making changes. Those changes weren't reflecting live because it was using the production version.
Dominic, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. What I usually do, I usually publish to production. I'm not sure that's better, but I usually just publish every time, just publish to production. But,
Then, yeah, that would work, but I don't know that we would feel comfortable publishing your project without like fully testing it. What if we break something?
Like what I'm doing here would achieve the same thing, so that's fine. I think it's, if you want to do that workflow, you can, but also you might not, as you get like more developed with if you had something in the wild and people were using it and things, you might not want to do that every time too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, dude, I'm like the admin side stuff. So I'm like, no, you go from development to test, and then you test everything. And then from test to production. These guys are wild in their own personal projects. They go straight from development to production. And I'm like,
Just did it on the
what are you
Web3
doing?
minting site yesterday. I was like thinking about it, and I was like, ooh, should I do this right? And I was like, dev production. Guys, I just published. And then I was like, I shouldn't have done that.
Living on the edge. Which is fine. Like if you know, and you're the only one in there making changes, you know what you're doing, you probably test through it. Like, you can just do that. For something like Bildr size, like that could never possibly work.
I can't imagine, dude. I would never do that with Bildr. That would be insane. So I published that, and if you notice, it did not work again. But what I did this time is I just removed the domain check and just did set value of that word, because I just want to like go step by step, and get something to work first. So should come in as hello universe for a split second and then change. All right, it did work there. So it says test. So let me put that domain back in. There we go, domain, verify. So if current page, is that the same variable? Just double check everything. Yep. Domain is contained in. Oh, this might be, maybe this condition. The thing is, if this condition wasn't correct, it should still work.
This is the bit that I was like, I'm not sure what to do right.
This isn't like wrong or anything. I don't think like it might work, but basically it's just saying you take that variable that comes back and you're saying if it's contained in this value you get, and this value you get, you're going to get from the verified website, the website field. So it's going to be JSON, but it's going to say like website : whatever the website's value is. And so it is contained in should actually work in this case because it is contained in. But what you can do too is you can just say like if it equals verified website and then change this to comma separated, then you're doing a more direct comparison. We're saying if it equals that. Actually, that wouldn't work, because you're gonna have multiple records. Let me show you. So what I was getting at is you could do it this way, but let me show you the way I would actually do this. Basically, instead of doing a condition when you verify, you can do a direct lookup. So you can say like, we'll do it as a variable first. We'll say set a variable. Current page. I'm just going to call it website now. I don't know what I would actually call it, but what you do is you pull the variable from the data collection directly. So I'd choose verified websites. And then the field, really, in this case, the field barely even matters, but I'll choose the website field. And then the key here, the difference is we're gonna add a filter. So I did set variable, you can call it whatever you want, and I'm getting the value from a data collection where I'm filtering by that domain variable we just got. So what I'm
Okay.
saying is like, give me the record where the website field equals this variable.
Yeah.
And if I do this and I keep a JSON array, that's going to actually set a variable that is the entire record where the website equals the domain. So it's going to have every field in this variable. And so I actually don't need this compare anymore. Well, I don't want to delete your stuff. I won't delete that just yet, but you can delete this compare. So you have the variable, and then instead of the compare like you did, if you want to do either a verified or unverified, you do a compare like this, where you actually say, if the variable, or you, what do I call it, website? So you say if the variable website
Is equal to null,
what's that?
is equal to null, so is
Yeah, I was gonna
not,
say, you can either say this, if website is blank,
yeah,
then it's unverified, you don't have a value, and if not, it's verified. But you can also do, because you know that it's giving you back like an array of objects from the data, or because I know that, I guess I know to do this, I can say current page website, and I'll add a path of .length. That'll actually give me the number of records that it returned. So I can say if the length is greater than 0, that means it did return a record. So I'd run verified. And if it is less than 0, it would run unverified. So I would do something like that. The blank is fine. It's just like some cases there's blank, there's null, there's empty quote strings. There's a lot of different things that are blank in code. So like sometimes to avoid things like that, I'll do something more specific like this, but either way.
so then we would have to set the paragraph element to the particular field from the array.
Yeah,
Right.
and so you can set it directly from that array that we just got, or you can do what you did here would actually still work, where you're actually doing it, you're doing a separate call to the database, but you're saying get the text field, and you're doing the filter already that I just did, where website equals domain. So actually in your condition, you didn't use this setup, but when you set the value, you use this setup and it's correct.
Okay.
Oh, and you know what? This is why it's not setting it right here, because the actual element you're choosing to set is a text box below.
Yeah, there's a hidden, that's the hidden text box that I want to set.
Oh, you want to set that?
Yeah.
I thought this was going to change.
Just a test. I just put that as a test to say, hey, something's showing here and it should be showing.
Are you showing it after it's being?
No,
Yeah.
it's just there. It's just something to say, hey, this, to me, it was just saying, hey, this Chrome extension's kind of working.
Gotcha, but is it hidden by default?
No, it
Or it
was,
was just empty? Okay.
yeah, there's nothing going on with that header. It's just a static, there's no flows being run on Hello Universe. The flows were being run on the text box.
I'm not sure if I can break on this action in an extension, but all those things you're saying and what I'm seeing look like it's all correct. So I'm wondering if I can, what I do normally if I wasn't an extension is I'll break on this action of get Chrome extension. It'll actually show me what it's returning. Well, actually, I think I saw that it was returning www Twitter. So maybe it's on this verify. So somewhere in here, we just need to like check what's happening, and like somewhere in here it's getting hung up, and I don't know why.
Well, Drew, did you try it with the set variable flow that you set up?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I feel like even what I set up, it should still have worked, because he did a condition where both sides were filled out. So even if like the top was wrong, it should still run the unverified one, unverified website flow. Well, let's see. I don't know what's happening now. Oh, there it goes. Oh, okay. So when I redid it, it did work. So I actually don't, I don't really understand why that didn't work on yours. I kept your condition in here also.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if there wasn't an error that broke it, so I really don't understand, but for whatever reason, just separating it out, like finding that as a variable first and doing a comparison of the variable seems to have changed it. And then like I mentioned in the beginning, it's saying this website is not verified because it's not www. So I think if I did www and tried it, it should come up with the text. I'm going. I don't know what happened. It just stopped working, I guess. Very weird.
I feel like someone just mentioned that in the bugs channel with the Chrome extensions.
Oh, really?
And yeah, Mark was gonna look, and because we hadn't seen that before and we weren't sure, like, because it's not I don't think Chrome's actually validated it. I don't know, sometimes they're like doing a check or something. I don't know. I don't even know.
It seems like it just didn't work. Oh, it seems like it doesn't work when it's on www, which is strange. Oh no, actually it always replaces that. I don't know why it's not working.
Okay.
But basically what you do there, or what you can do there, because there's like everything else, there's a ton of options.
Yeah.
But you have this variable called domain, and you can do processing on it if you want. So in this verify step, here we're filtering by this domain here. You could do things, you don't have to do this directly in line. You can set another variable, which is like a little easier to follow logically, like set a variable first. But essentially, and I don't know how much, like how comfortable you would be with this kind of stuff, but on these paths, like I would do something like this, where I would say replace www with nothing. And basically now, whether it's www.twitter or just Twitter, when it does the comparison, it'll remove the www. So whether you're on www or just Twitter, it'll always match. So like, I think if I did this, like this probably is going to match. I think that means it did match and it just didn't output that text. So there's probably more to debug when you come in here. But it would be set value, text, comma separated. Oh, I forgot. So this is like a funny case too, because I would have to actually do that filter, this replacing in both. I just want to see if this works. In real life, since I decided to do the same thing in two places, I actually would replace that. I would set a variable somewhere else and use the variable in both places. Because like in general in building stuff, but for me in particular, like I'm really harp on having a single source of truth for everything. I hate anything where I have to go update the same thing twice if I want to change it. So I try not to actually do that in real life. I just wanted to see if it would work, which is, it's weird because basically the verify flow is not working. So it's like, in this case, we have to go troubleshoot this now and figure out why it's setting it, but it's probably just not returning the text for some reason.
I think that's what I was having trouble with, because when I would just display the domain would display.
Oh,
But
okay.
if I wanted to show any other field that is with that entry, it was just not set in any other field.
Let me see what happens if I set this to JSON. Because you can do like, I just set it to JSON, but it should just output in the text box. It'll look weird, but a lot of times what I do is I just want to see what Bildr is giving me. I'll do something like that. And so here we can see what happened is it's not finding that record because it gave me an empty JSON string. So it's the straight brackets are saying array and then curly brackets are saying an object. There's one empty object in this array. So that means it's probably like the filters here aren't correct. And it's like, I don't know again, normally I would break point on this and check it. I'll try real quick. I'm not sure if this is gonna work though. Actually, I don't even know where to find it in an extension. What I do is I come into this code here and like, because I know Bildr's code, I can go in here and like find the right thing and I put a little thing on it to break, but this might be it. I don't want to spend too much time. This doesn't work. If this does work, it'll be the solution for us. We'll know exactly what's going on. It's really crazy though. It's like I come to this specific line, add a breakpoint that's specific.
By the way, for anyone who's like, what the heck is Drew doing? There is a really good tutorial where we actually talk about like how you can debug in Bildr, and we tell you what some of the common things that you can, I don't even know what the names for them are, but some of the things that you can input, like here using your browser's debugger to try and figure out like the values that you're getting or what you're sending and stuff like that. So let me find that and I'll chat that to y'all, because it's a really good session for anyone who's like building something complex and then maybe getting stuck. We did like a whole session on how you can use all these tools. So great, I found it. That was fast. Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
I don't know if this worked, if I just broke on the correct one, but I think it did. Looks like it did. So it looks like it's trying to set in an empty value for text. So I'm guessing that means the filter is not correct. Just pass that. Yeah, it's just undefined. So it's probably something in that filter. And, you know, I don't know because it looked good, but let me see. And website from variable current page domain. Verified website. Verified.
Would it be easier? Maybe a quick fix for me is to use Airtable collections, put the data in Airtable, and get the browser and use the browser URL as a search input for the Airtable collection.
I mean, if you are comfortable in Airtable, that might be easier, but that actually sounds more complex. Like you have 90% of it here, or 99% of it really. What I would do in this case is actually, instead of using the, like going back to the database directly, I'll just set this value from the array we created. And so I'll leave yours in there, but I'll just reset it right afterwards. And I'll just say from the variable, we made a variable called website that we know is the whole row. So we can actually do a similar thing with pass, where I know the variable is called website. And if I get the ID of the field, so I want to get text, right? I want to show text. So I go to these three dots, I can copy this ID. And then I can just say like that. Website dot, actually in this case, I think I have to say .0 because it's an array. So I'm finding the first object in the array. So this is like a little tricky because it's JavaScript, and we have an interface for this that's going to come at some point soon. It's actually very done, but not completely done, where you don't have to know JavaScript and you can take full advantage of these paths and do things like I just did, where it'll walk us through. What's that? I don't know. I didn't catch that. If you said something, we can just say it again. But yeah, so basically like this is JSON or JavaScript or whatever. Like I just wrote this because I knew how to write it, but I'm saying, give me that website variable, which is an array, the first record, and then this is the text field. It's not called text, it's called this field ID. So that's what all that is. But altogether, that should, if it finds it, that should work, because now we're not going back to the database and doing the filtering at all. We know we already found that variable and we're just going to display something from it.
I love sessions like this because I feel like it's a lot more reflective of what a build-in process actually is versus when we come in here and we do sessions and it's like, here, how you do it. And it's like so straightforward. I feel like sometimes that can kind of like tinge like what a real expectation should be of like, what is it to actually build something that's, you know, complex and you know, doing different things. So
Yeah.
I like that. I like when we run into issues and when we debug, because I think it's like definitely part of the process of building that needs to be shared.
I think that's a huge concept that I try to tell everyone I work with. Like when I work with people, they say, I'm really stuck. Can we have a call and we go through something and we just do this. We just troubleshoot. And I try to like explain, like, this is what I do. Literally, like, this is what it means to build. Like, you're just troubleshooting dumb things that should be easy. That's literally what it is. And so it's like, even me, after doing it for so long, like I come in, what I'm doing right now is a perfect example. So I just made it output the whole variable we got. And the reason it's not finding text is because I didn't include text in the variable. So all I got in the variable was the website. So it's like little things like that, where it's like I did everything correctly, but I just forgot one little detail, and then it's trial and error, going back. But for this one to fix it, it's on this verify where I set this variable, I pulled the right record. We found the record, but I only pulled the field website. So really what I want is get all fields, or I can specify, 2 or more fields, but I'm trying to display text. So no matter what, I need the field text to be in here somewhere. But I'll use get all fields because we can just pull them all. And so now before it's finalized, I'm still just outputting the whole variable. I'm just going to double check and make sure, but we should see more values, and then I'll switch it to the last step, and then this will work. So there we can see the one we're looking for is started with M, I believe. Here's an M1. I'm not sure which one's which. Let's see what the value is. This is Twitter. It's actually peculiar because I don't see this is Twitter in here, which I definitely should. That's kind of weird. Let me try to output it.
Can we compare the IDs, like the field ID?
I didn't see the field ID or the text, but I see everything else. So it should be MCWW as the field, and the text should be this is Twitter. I didn't see that, but like, for example, ID MQF, I did see. So it's like, here's the MQF. It's under filter set. So it's probably not going to output, but I mean, at this point, we're like deep in, like, this is not like a normal everyday thing. This is like some deep troubleshooting. So it's probably something crazy. It's not like if you did this again, if you set this all up again, you probably wouldn't even run into this. But it's something in here. So let me see.
By set it up again, do you mean like recreate the flows and actions?
Basically, yeah, or like if you just did this. I don't know. I wouldn't, like, personally, if I were doing this, I wouldn't recommend that at this stage. I would just keep going. Like, I'm just troubleshooting through, and it's like output a variable. If it doesn't output, take a step back, output the one before that or something, like I just would keep trying stuff. But I meant more like, if you did this on another project in the future, this is a weird quirk that has nothing to do with extensions or anything. It's just like something's just not going well for us right now. We just have to figure it out. But yeah, so it's still not working. I mean, we're in the right ballpark because we know that it's finding Twitter in the database, and it's trying to output, it's finding a record. It's just for some reason not finding the field we want, And that, I don't know if it makes sense to even keep going on this because we're over time and all that. But it's like the next step I would try is just changing things on these fields. Like it's get all, like I would go specifically get text maybe and try that.
Yeah. Tell you what, Dominic, can you chat us in the bugs channel? Did you chat us in the bugs channel on this one?
I I'm not sure. I don't think in the bugs channel because I wasn't sure the bug or just me.
Yeah, I don't think we know right now either. So I would recommend chatting it in the bugs channel. You said you have Mark on here.
Yeah, as a collaborator,
As
yeah.
a collab, okay. Chat it in the bugs channel. I'll create a thread from that, and then we'll follow up on this and see if we can figure it out.
Okay.
And then I can always chat what it is that we found, whether it's a bug or whether it was something in the setup. That way, if anyone wants to come revisit or find out what it was, we can share that. And then that way, we make sure we get whatever it is working for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we made some progress, but sorry, we couldn't get it all the way. I feel like it's gonna be probably out of your control too, but we'll see. I'll definitely keep looking into it. Everything looks fine right now to me, so it's a little strange.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we are about 20 minutes over time, so we are going to have to end this session, but we will be back next week. And also, obviously in the Discord, if there's something specific that you guys hit that we can help with, chat us there. Otherwise, I'll upload this today or tomorrow and then share it with you guys in the education channel if you want to rewatch anything. Yeah, but I think that about does it. Thank you guys so much for joining today, making this such a great session and bringing the awesome questions. So I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of the week. And thank you, Drew, so much for holding it down and showing us how you work, which is always one of my favorite things to watch.
Take away Mark's fun. Mark loves doing it. It's off and we miss it.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Fun.
So.